So, Mr. Chen, I'll pass you the time.
So, warm, good afternoon to everyone. Hope you had a good lunch. Innovation. When you think about innovation, most people think about all the positive things. It's exciting, it's technology, it's new business models, it's digitalization, but very few people talk about the challenges with innovation, scalability, costs, whether quality can match up to what's required. So today we're going to do two things. The first part of this session, we're going to hear from 4 unique innovators that we've curated from around the world, including from Hong Kong, who are doing different innovations for sustainability in the industry. But the second part, we're going to have a discussion. We're going to talk a little bit more about the challenges with implementing some of these innovations. The theme of this year's Fashion Summit is achieving the results. And as we drive towards achieving results, it has to be less about talking about innovation, talking about sustainability, but really thinking about how to implement some of these technologies. So without further ado, I'd like to invite the first innovator that we have, all the way from Stockholm, Mattias, whom you've heard this morning as well. So Mattias from Newcell, please.
Thank you, Alexander. Thank you so much for having me again. Yeah, I will try not to repeat myself too much from this morning, but I will talk about chemical recycling of textiles and how we turn that into a viable product that can be used for making textiles again. And the name of the company is Newcell. So, a bit of a background now. I don't know whether you're familiar with this figure, but it's a fact, it's a cruel fact, that less than 1% of the textile production globally is recycled. And it's mainly today, basically only, I would say, mechanical recycling, which has its limitations with regards to quality. We need to do something about that. That is what we strive for. The fashion value chain is indeed very long and is very linear. And it creates a lot of waste throughout the different stages. You have a lot of production waste coming out from fabric manufacturing. It's cutting waste, a lot of waste there. The fashion brands, sometimes it is the elephant in the room, excess inventory. There is overproduction in this industry, so you have to do something with it, and it comes with the costs. People are seeking for alternatives to recycle their excess inventory. And of course, when consumers have used their loved garments, they want to dispose of it in some way, so a lot of waste coming up from there as well. And then you have waste management collecting companies and sorters around the globe to try to deal with this. So what we do at Newcell, we try to connect the waste management companies, the waste collection industries. We recycle the fiber so it can be turned into textiles again. So let me go through just briefly again, and we'll drill down to more about the chemical and the chemical recycling that we do. We receive all that waste, and it's coming from cutting waste from production. It's coming from post-consumer waste, but also inventory that nobody can sell. And there are different business models around this. We pay for some of it, we get some for free, and we charge to deal with some of it. So it's a variety of business models in order to get the waste to our site. What we do, we shred this waste, and we turn it into a slurry. And the slurry is de-dyed, so we take out the colors. We clean it, so we get a pure cellulose, because we are focusing on cotton waste. There are many other polyester initiatives around recycling of polyester, but there's a different chemistry. We're focusing on cellulose and cotton. And when we do that, we start with this textile waste, and we turn it into this white pulp. That is our product, this white pulp. And from this white pulp, you can make viscose and other types of man-made cellulosic fibers. And then you're back to textiles again. So we take cotton and turn it into man-made cellulosic fibers, like viscose, lyocell, tencel, what have you. So that's what we do. And it is an innovation. We've been working quite hard to do this. We have a production unit, a recycling plant in Sweden, far away from the center and gravity of the textile world, but nevertheless, we're quite good at pulping in Sweden. And we can produce 7,000 metric tons every year. That equals a weight of 30 million t-shirts. It's a commercial viable plant. But we have great ambitions. That's why I'm in Hong Kong. So we want to expand. Our goal is to be able to recycle 1 billion garments every year. But that requires growth and scale. So we are aiming for several production lines across the world, and including, of course, East Asia. So that is what we do. And please help us, like us on LinkedIn and social media in order to promote our efforts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mattias. So Mattias did the same trick this morning, and I think when you notice like him fiddling with his pocket, some audience commented it was like a magic show. How do you turn old fabrics, old garments into something new? So I'm going to do a magic show of my own and using my pants as an example. So the pants that I'm wearing today, they're tailor-made for my measurements. All I did was to go into a 3D scanner, get a scan within 30 seconds, and then within a week, this company behind this jeans sent me perfectly fitting jeans. So introducing the company behind this great product, Brooke all the way from San Francisco to share a little bit more about Unspun.
Thank you for that amazing intro. And your jeans look amazing, so we're very happy about that. I'm from Unspun. I'm the product lead, but we think about product on many levels. We take into account the product also is a manufacturing product. It's a physical product, and it has a lot of components. Unspun is a company that is trying to create zero waste supply chains, and we want to focus to do that through leveraging automation, software, and also engineering. So what we're currently focused on now is two main issues. One is not talked about too much, but it's actually lack of fit. This is why you own 7 pairs of jeans and wear 2. This is why retailers are seeing 60% return rates on online purchases. This is why, in some cases, 60% of the clothes that you buy after 12 months end up in a landfill. And we are in this archaic model of sizing, and we choose a fit model, and then we try to squeeze the rest of the world into this sizing, and it's causing actually a big problem with waste on the consumer level. On the industry level, we're also trying to make stuff really fast, match supply and demand, and we're stuck in this cycle, and we have a lot of overproduction, excess inventory. So we want to focus on those at the moment, and then I'll get into our future plans. Because when you think about all of the resources that we pour into these fabrics, into these productions, the amount of waste that's coming from here is just creating a huge environmental impact, and we can absolutely avoid it. So our North Star is thinking about us changing 1%, and our rough calculations are if the apparel is responsible for 10%, and our technology is relevant for 1/3 of it, and we can even tap into 1/3 of that third, we can reach the 1%. And we know that we can't do this alone, and I'll get into collaboration and partnerships that we do. At the moment, we have launched our own brand, Unspun. Alex was also wearing this. I'm also wearing it. And we have a size-free model. So you come into the store, you get scanned, you pick your style, and you customize, and it gets sent to you. This also happens through a hyper-localized model, so depending on where you scan is where we produce. And it's all on demand, so no inventory. We've been creating software algorithms for a while and now have perfect fitting jeans for any shape or size that walks through the door, and we don't even talk about numbers anymore. And we hope that this changes the way that these products enter consumers' lives. This changes the entry point. There's so much more conversation that we can have about owning things longer and so many more touch points. And it can become quite emotional as well. So we like to capitalize on those experiences. And then in the future, we have an entire team at the moment dedicated to creating a 3D weaving machine because we know that zero inventory isn't enough. We want to go for zero cutting waste as well in the woven industry. When you think about pants, 10 to 20% of cutting waste comes when you're making pants. So when you think about orders of millions of jeans, we're racking up quite a lot. And if you think about other business models, the waste of all those resources, it's not quite in the business model. So we're really hoping to not only think about this in a sustainability sense, but also a business sense. So we want to weave these jeans to shape. We're going to create zero cutting waste, and also our name is Unspun. So the idea is that you will be able to bring these jeans back, and we will unweave them and use them again to make new jeans. So we're trying to really close the loop. And we don't want to stop there as well, because we are a super small brand, we're new, we're agile, so we can really just lay the groundwork. We're trying to phase out all virgin materials. We've already got to no virgin polyester. We're working on cotton. We're really adamant about water and chemicals. Our factories that we're working with, our mills, they all have amazing metrics. I could go into that more in the panel, but there's a lot to say there. And even to the packaging, because if we have this new business model of you come in and you get it 2 weeks later, right? But then what about all the packaging that we're creating? So we're piloting returnable packaging, not only in San Francisco, but in Hong Kong, which is proving to be quite difficult, but we're doing it. So we know that we have to think about this in an entirely circular way, and we have to think about a lot of things. We want to make sure that we do it right first so that we're not running around later trying to fix our mistakes. And with that, and us being able to build all of these things because we're small and we're new and we're agile, we want to leverage that capabilities to help brands and partners be more innovative and try these new things and take these risks with us. So we are in collaboration with brands. We're going zero inventory with them. Soon we'll go zero cutting waste, but there's a lot of collaborations that we're really excited with, and we also collaborate with manufacturers as well, because they're a large piece of the puzzle. So excited to talk more about that later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Brooke. So the first two speakers talked about recycling and closing the loop. And when we look at the industry today, when you think about recycling, one of the biggest challenges is in when you get old pieces back, how do you actually separate it back out for recycling? Because the separation process is always the hardest part. So the next speaker you'll hear from is working on a technology precisely focused on separation. So I'd love to invite Cédric from Resortecs to share a little bit more about fascinating product that they're working on. Cédric, please.
Hello, I am Cédric from Resortecs, and what we do is we developed stitching threads that dissolve at high temperature. We're speaking about temperatures around 200 degrees Celsius, so the temperature you use to bake your cake, and that allows you to dismantle easily garments after manufacturing and use, so that you can sort the different components and recycle and reuse each of those. Next to that, we work on a lot of LCAs and calculations to see how you can optimize that implementation of circular economy in the supply chain, because those two need to go hand in hand to solve this problem, which is the fact that every second, so now already I think 10 trucks passed by with textile waste that is not recycled, but is mainly incinerated. And when you look to the solutions that we have today, there are not a lot of them that really work. Incineration, the most used one, well, is highly polluting, and is in some countries, like France, starting to get banned legally as well. The second most used option, and still a really viable one, but starts to be under pressure as well, is reuse and resale of garments, where you see that the fast fashion is making garments that are less quality, so that you cannot really reuse a garment even if it hasn't been used a lot. So the question mark there lies mainly in the revenue streams of selling garments that are not usable. So you need to go to the third option, and that is recycling. Go back to the material level. And there we have one challenge, which is how can we scale this up? How can we make sure that that massive amount of 30 million trucks per year can be recycled in the most efficient way? And we have a really great example here. Just a little bit outside Hong Kong, we have the Tex Plant. And everything is automated except of cutting out buttons and zippers out of garments. There are just people there with scissors cutting them manually, step by step. And this is something that struck us even before we visited the plant, and we thought, let's do something about it. And that is the thing. So a stitching thread, you put it on your stitching machine, you make your garment with it. On the moment you want to take out those buttons, those zippers, those labels, or separate linings from outsides of your garment, you just heat it up manually for local disassembly, so piece assembly for repair, or you put it in a dismantling line that will allow you to dismantle garments in a massive scale and recycle those. It looks like this. This is a thread. So we stitched some different samples of materials together. In this case, we go over a heat gun at 200 degrees Celsius, and then you will see that slowly the thread seems to disappear. And then you can take out all those parts that were stitched like this. So in a matter of seconds, instead of in a matter of minutes, by using scissors or decovits, you can take apart stitched components. So the idea is mainly this. So you have the manufacturing, you make it. On a moment after use, or after, if it's not sold as well, you can just put it in those dismantling processes, and then you can sort all those components. So you take out those zippers and those buttons and those labels that really annoy recyclers, and then you can sort all those materials. And by sorting those materials on a component level, you allow them to have high purity in the materials, so that facilitates chemical recycling. And by avoiding to cut garments in pieces to take out those buttons and those zippers, you maintain a high fiber length, which is really beneficial for mechanical recycling. So in both cases, we optimize those recycling processes that we really need. And so after recycling, the goal is, of course, if we collaborate with all those people here, we can bring it back to a textile level and make new garments with it. So we managed to reach that circular economy that we all want to reach. And we made a garment. And then after I made it, we took it apart again. And that we did already for multiple times. So this jacket has been made, I think, 5 times again, every time again with the same pieces. So I wear it, then on stage, I dismantle it, and then for the next presentation, I come back and I dismantle it again. That's what I do, mainly. And then, so we have, when you look to all those dismantling pieces, like I said, we can shred pieces, but then you have a problem on quality. You can use scissors, but then you have a problem with the scale and how fast you can dismantle it. So what we try to do with that Resortecs technology is to combine easiness of disassembly with quality of recycled outcome and purity. And it allows you to decrease per garment nearly 1 kilogram of CO2 when it's recycled. It saves you money for brands, especially in everything that is overstock. And then it allows also recyclers to have a higher value for the materials as it is of higher quality. So we try to also bring financial benefits and CO2 benefits for all those different stakeholders in that complete supply chain. So that is what I do. So I'm Cédric Vanhoeck from Resortecs, and looking forward to speak with all those other colleagues that are trying to pull the fashion industry into circular economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Cédric. So we've taken a trip around the world, right? You heard from innovators all around the world. We're going to close the loop and end with an innovator from Hong Kong, that Cédric kind of referenced in his presentation as well. The Novatex facility, one of the innovators and partners behind it is HKRITA. And to share more about their work, Dr. Gloria from HKRITA.
Good afternoon. Yeah, great honor to be here, share what we done in Hong Kong RITA. So Hong Kong RITA was founded by ITF Hong Kong, and every year we develop around 20 projects in Hong Kong dollar, around 90 million. So all the projects follow these three themes: sustainability, industry advantage, and a better society. We know the textile industry has the longest and probably is the most complicated supply chain. So from the raw material design, fabrication, garment making, even recycle, all steps involve technology to achieve the sustainability. So we propose a project tool is the fabric impact assessment. We would like to propose this tool at the beginning of the product developer or design stages to help the designers and the product developer to positively evaluate the impact of the products. So the impact we assessed from three aspects: the environmental, social, and animal even. So all of the factors was grouped into these three categories, and we set up a database analysis and integrated advisor from the expertise panel to vet the factors. So from these tools can be help the manager and the designer and even the exclusive manager to manage the product's impact to the sustainability. And we also know the textile industry probably has the biggest water footprint on Earth. So we developed this waterless technology. We use supercritical CO2 as the dye media, carry the dyes to the fabric surface to immigrate the dyes into the fiber, change the color. So we developed this two-in-one system. So use no water, achieve the color change. And we also develop a solvent-assistant dye system. We eliminate salt, which is very important and bigger volume and the bigger trouble in the waste of water treatment. And also we eliminate 90% of water in the dyeing process. We use green solvent to dye the cotton, characters such as the wool and the silk fiber, and the polyamide, nylon. And you may heard about in 2015, we cooperated with H&M Foundation under a big research scheme called Closed Loop Textile Recycle. At the beginning of this research theme, we targeted the most challenging part, the blended fabric. So we developed a project, studied how to separate cotton and the PET blended fabric, which is the biggest proportion in the fiber consumption globally. So after that, we also studied how to enhance the property of the recycled fiber, their properties. And we also studied the mechanical recycle method, how to involve the waterless, very effective method to achieve the fiber recycle. So at this moment, all these projects already at the commercialization and the scale-up stages. And here is shows the hydrothermal system. It's majorly is for the cotton PET blended fabric separation. It can recover the polyester fiber over 98% without molecular depolymerization. And also the cellular particle can be used for regenerated cellular fiber production or some functional cellular-based product development. And this site has been set up in the Hong Kong typo industry estate. And the similar method, we also applied the biological way. So we use the fungi and the enzyme to digest the cotton, become the cellular particle, and keep the polyester fiber as its original properties. And we also work with Hong Kong local industry partner, Novotex. And we developed the mechanical recycle system without water involved to recycle the garment, whatever it is, the cotton, polyester, or blended fabric. So this is the site images. And the whole system is waterless. And most importantly, we use ozone, and the UV can eliminate over 90% of microorganisms. And the quality is good, and from the economic system design, we make sure the operation and the production is in occupational safe. And as I said, we harvest the cellular particle from the hydrothermal or the biological process. And except we use the cellular particles, regenerated the cellular fiber, go back to the garment manufacture. And we also use the cellular particle as the super absorbency polymer. So at this moment, most of them are petroleum-based. And this cellular-based high absorbency material is biodegradable and nature material-based. And I think the whole sustainability, we cannot leave our consumer. So we developed this G2G system, allocated in a retailer space in the mills in the chain one. So in a double-layer transparent glass box, we completed the whole system, a piece of old garment in and regenerate a new garment out. So that is the educational tool. Let the consumer experience how we can make the garment recyclable. So in the whole process, we learned a lot from our research partner and the industry partner. We are doing applied research and hope to be useful to the industry and the society. And please come to us if you feel us could be useful. Thank you.
Feel free to stay on stage, Gloria, as we invite the other members of the panel up on stage as well. Great. So we have about, I think, 20-odd minutes to discuss some questions. I'm sure the audience will have questions in a bit as well. But to start off with, I have a few sort of common, I won't say criticisms, but common challenges that people would think of when they think about sustainability and recycling. So maybe starting with Gloria. I think when consumers, right, for us, we're all in the industry, we understand and recognize the value of sustainability, but most consumers would think sustainability means lower quality, higher costs. To that, what do you think, or how do you think that?
Yes, and I think that's quite related with technologies. And as I said, we developed the even cotton polyester blended fabric. We can use the either chemical method or biological method to keep the fiber, polyester fiber, almost as the original property as it is. No molecular depolymerization happened, and we can go to the yarn spinning, to the garment making directly. And that means, I think, the costs is, that means not the cost, it's the quality. I think the quality actually is not the concern. And also we have the technology to transform the cellular particle, even the waste residues, go back to the high absorbency polymer. That means the high value added products. So that's one question is about the quality. And the cost, I think, because the cost benchmarking actually is changing. When we're talking about the production of textile, a lot of costs go to the wastewater treatment. And then now, actually, we also introduced the concept of carbon emission. So such that the cost is change or calculation of the cost. So I think give time, that will be changed.
So looking at time and looking at, almost almost all of you work on recycling. And when you think about recycling, I think the common criticism, again, is that recycling should be the final part of the loop. It shouldn't, if you actually have such recycling technologies available, would it actually lead people to consume even more? So to Cédric, how would you address the criticism when you think about recycling as a technology?
Yeah, you heard a lot of people say, yeah, we should reuse more and then recycle, but then you meet the people that are in recycling and are saying we cannot reuse those garments that we receive because they're not of the good quality that we had 20 years ago. So there is a complete shift in there. And then next to that, there is such a massive amount of garments that are never sold, for example. and that the reason that they are not sold is because they are not wanted for one or another reason, or they can't find a market, or they are not fitting a demand because there is no demand. So the question is, what do you do with products that nobody wants? But the materials, those are wanted because the industry continues to produce. So I think that as long as the system of the fashion industry is not changing, recycling will be one of those major activities that will enable us to at least manage this environmental impact in the most efficient way.
So you mentioned a bit about consumer demand and how that would still shape the need for recycling. And when you think about it, I think all four of you work on innovations that are, I would say, for the industry. So things that the brands and manufacturers can adopt, right? But the consumer part of the equation is something that's equally important. And maybe for Brooke, right? How are you guys working to think about addressing consumer mindsets? How are you guys thinking about changing consumer behavior?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're creating a lot of touch points. So we're trying to leverage, I mean, when people come in and purchase a garment, they leave with that garment, and you don't have that information. So it's kind of twofold. One, for the businesses, is that for us, they come in, they get scanned, we have a conversation, they come back, they repair it, they order another one and change things. So we're able to kind of build up a complete profile for everybody that comes into the store and interacts with us, and we gain so much value from that. Like, we are in the information part of society, and we're thinking about that a lot. So that, on a business standpoint, makes sense for us. On a consumer standpoint, people aren't going to stores as much. They're not having fun shopping, but online is really tricky for them as well. So we are trying to fill a gap that blends this digital and physical together with this undertone of sustainability, because we're finding that people really like it as an added value. And when you talk about something as emotional as jeans, that kind of falls to the second tier of topic, but it comes out later when they return. So it's just kind of keeping those conversations going, and then you see it kind of grow in their minds. So.
And I think a lot of key when you think about, at the end of the day, all of us are consumers, and creating a touch points that you mentioned is an important way to, using touch points as a way to educate consumers. But even if you have consumer demands for something, a common worry amongst the industries for many of these technologies is whether it's something that can be scaled. Because something can work very well in the lab, but when you actually take it to a factory level, there are a range of different implementation challenges. So, from Mattias, when you're starting your own pilot plant now, what are some of the challenges you have faced in scaling it up, and what would actually help when you talk or work with different brands and manufacturers?
But Alex, I don't understand the question. Do you have challenges with scalability?
Yeah. So,
no, just kidding. It's a huge problem. It's actually a huge problem, because I mean, what we are doing, at least, we really trying to connect with the leading brands, and use them in order to push their supply chain, in order to embrace us as an innovator, and walk that extra mile in order to get the solution going. Because it is difficult, because these incumbents that has fine-tuned their production and scaled their production so that they reach very low cost levels. They have very high production volumes on each production unit. They basically rationalized away all the pilot lines, just focusing on cost. So you really need to create a case for them as well to work together with you, and that was we spent very much effort into collaborating with these incumbents, because they are giants, very big companies. So I would advise to use the brands, because they can feel what's going on in the market, and use them to leverage on the actual downstream production or upstream production players.
Yeah, we have I think some brands and manufacturers sitting around the room today. So maybe for the rest of you, as you think about your innovations, I think some of you have began work with different brands and manufacturers as well. How has that sort of process been like? And if you were to give sort of tips or suggestions to some of these brands and manufacturers, like what is the best way to collaborating with innovators like yourselves?
I think for us, it's about buy-in and really understanding what they need to see to feel comfortable, because at the end of the day, you're building trust. They're taking a risk, you're taking a risk, and it's really trying to figure out like what they need to see and who's the champion and what they need to show to the rest of the brand to get things moving. And once that initial piece is over, things move quite fast. But I think that is the hardest point. Yeah.
I also think it is important to let brands and the retailers use your story, so that they can use that in their marketing, in their strategies, in their sustainability work, et cetera. So embrace them in that sense, make them benefit from it.
Something they can use in their own marketing and storytelling as well. Of course. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's technology, so it means that there are iterations needed. So one thing that I could also say is that you have to accept that sometimes you will have to take step backs, and that afterwards you can come back again. When I look to us, we have 5 companies that we always send threads to. And once we have a thread that looks like a thread, we send it to them to just have returns from them. But you have to communicate really clearly on that you know that sometimes you're really sending threads out there that never work, or will never work, but that you send it just to understand how it behaves on their stitching machines, in our case, and to see what you have to change on a thread that works, that you know that you have in lab that works half and half, and that you say, but there's something about it, let's send thing that is even worse to see what is really happening. And as long as you have a good communication on that, it goes well. But sometimes you had that it was bad communication, and you have a problem suddenly because they say, yeah, this doesn't work. But it's innovation, it's part of the game.
Yeah, I think I quite agree, communications. Yeah. Sometimes the technology is novel, but it always takes time to let the industry or the consumer even understand the benefit of the technology. So I think it needed the communication. So both the brands, the manufacturer feed us what they are looking for, what they need. And we will, probably sometimes the technology actually it need modified based on existing one, and then to fit the demand from the industry and the society. So I think the communication is very helpful. Yeah.
You talk a little bit about the communication, the interaction between technology and feedback from the brands and manufacturers, right? So
yes.
I think Edwin, when he kicked off today's session right in the morning, he talked about two or three things, right? One was about reinvention, which is really about technology, looking at new technologies that are coming out. And the other thing was about reimagination, which is thinking about business models, thinking about how industries can adapt. So I'm going to put a question for the audience first, right? If you look between technology and business models, what do you think is more important for innovation? Who would think it's, show of hands, who would think it's the technology? That's the more important part. So some hands, okay. Business model? Okay, majority think it's the business model. So same question to the panel, right? Business model, technology, how do you balance between the two? Because obviously it is somewhere in between, but how exactly as innovators do you balance between getting right mix?
Am I allowed to vote? I will vote for technology, because I don't think that just shipping stuff around the same, producing so much, and just to try to fine tune the usage of material is going to do it for us. I think you have to go into to technology in order to reach a more sustainable path forward. So we focus on technology. Business model is quite simple. We sell a product and we hope that we get paid for it.
Yeah. You guys agree? Yeah. Brooke?
I mean, for us, we get our foot through the door talking about both. Mm-hmm. So when you can tell someone that they might be able to avoid over $1 billion worth of unsold inventory, now they're listening. And oh, by the way, it has this impact as well. So we work both, and yeah, that's how we're trying to do it.
Yeah, it's with phases. There are phases where you focus on the technology, and then suddenly you have phases where you really have to focus on the, I wouldn't really say it's a business model, but more just a financial thing behind it. It comes back to numbers in the end. It's like, how much can you save? So then we calculate how much we can save. And then once that is done, then we go back to the technology to see if we can even make it better. So it's a kind of, it helps each other, but sometimes you have the feeling that you have to focus on one, and then you're completely in there, and then you think you're forgetting and not giving too much attention to the other part. So it's the struggle of an innovator, I think.
Yeah, I'm at the technology side, innovation. And I think the technology actually can support the business and give the business have the advantage in the competitions. So, but in the process involve a lot of customization and the justification of the technology fit the business. So that's what I saw.
So talking about technology and business model, right? So I think one of the audience questions that we had was to Newcell about technology. Okay. So the question goes, can you actually take cotton and elastin blends? And if yes, what do you actually do with the elastin blends, which is chemically separated? So I'm not a technical person. I hope you understand what the question is asking.
Yeah, unfortunately I do. As I said this morning, it's a very competent audience because the elastane is a problem. Yeah. It is a hassle to get rid of. But what we manage to achieve is that we can accept like denim waste. That normally contains about 95 to 98% cotton, and the rest is elastane or some kind of polyester strengthener. So what we do is that when we dissolve those pair of jeans into slurry, it's possible for chemically to separate the things out because we have sort of loosened it up chemically on a very sort of molecular level. So you can actually, because the fiber, the elastane fiber and the polyester fiber, they carry other kinds of properties than cellulose. So having done that, you can actually separate. I will not say that it will be 100% clean, but it will be good enough for the next step in the value chain.
So there's been another audience question, also about technology. And you talk about clean, right? They understand that the factories that the energy like power source, chemical, water are used in a closed loop, but they're interested to know about the footprint and intensity in transforming old collected clothes into cellulose. So another technical question.
Of course, you need three things as the question sort of sums up. You need energy to basically reach a certain temperature in order to cook the jeans in that sense. But compared to traditional wood pulp production, it's much easier to cook a pair of jeans than cook a wood log. Comparatively, we use less energy. When it comes to chemicals, we use also less chemicals, dissolvents than traditional wood pulp production, because again, dissolving a pair of jeans, it's much easier than dissolved wood. And what was the third one? What
I think it was power source, chemical, and water.
Yeah, the water. Yeah, sorry, the water. Yeah. The water is quite effective because we circulate the water in our process. So compared to growing cotton or producing other kinds of fibers, it's 1,000 folds less water use in our process than producing virgin fibers. So yeah, but still, it has an environmental footprint because it's a process energy. We're not magicians.
So I think you should understand why he said technology is important by the answer. Another audience question was more about business model. And I think this one, both Brooke and Cédric can answer. And it's about how difficult it is to produce customized garments that are different from what you see in stores. With your technologies, effectively, what you're producing will be unique for each garment, right? What can manufacturers pay attention to if they are producing clothes that's sort of made on demand and customized?
I leave it to you, Brooke.
Yeah, we are in the thick of that question right now. I mean, when you think about how we've been producing garments, it's arguably been the same for hundreds of years. And it's kind of amazing that when you go in and you just ask, oh, instead of a big giant chunk, can we just do a constant slow stream? And it's just, whoa, you know? So I think it's really trying to understand how they work, what makes them comfortable, what buttons we can push on, and what is a deal breaker for us and what is a deal breaker for them. But there are a lot of challenges there. We see a lot of successes getting our foot in the door in sampling rooms. And then we kind of are ready to scale up and they can jump on our own line. But it really, the factories and manufacturers that we are talking to, those are the ones that are really looking for the future, and those are the ones that they don't want to be left behind. So we just really look for that, and if the will is there and the communication is good, it's usually a pretty solid partnership.
Anything to add, Cédric?
No, I don't know, yeah. We are more into repair, I think, than customization. You could use it for customization, but it's more for recycling and repair, I think, that we have much more impact. Yeah.
And I guess another question, right, is, you know, when you think about all of us work on sustainability, there's obviously the cost side of the equation, whether this eventually helps to save costs, but there's the impact side of the equation, right? And something that commonly in the industry most people want to know more of is what's the actual impact that you're having on sustainability? How are you actually measuring that? How are you actually keeping track of whether, you know, you're doing the right things? Because it's all good to, again, all good for us to discuss and talk, but for you in your businesses and innovations, are there ways that you're measuring the impact on sustainability?
Yeah, we use the life cycle assessment, the EcoInvent tool, continuously. I think it's open nearly every day. If I open my laptop now, I think we have a database on Drive. You go on my Chrome, and you will see that the database is open. At least just looking into some numbers, every step that you take, you're just checking. Because otherwise it doesn't really make sense to make something that is more, as we are making processes as well. In our case, we are having heat to apply to dismantle the thread. You have the production of that thread as well. So we need to make sure that never in that process, you're suddenly making more CO2 than what you do today. So yeah, something that we continuously do.
Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, we do the same. We're also part of LCA analysis, and we're letting other people also assess us. So that's part of the game.
Yeah. So final sort of like, we're almost out of time, right? So final question for each of you. You know, where do you see the opportunities and where do you see the challenges for the industry and for your innovations as you think about the next 2 to 3 years? So yeah, for each of you, opportunity and challenges. Anyone welcome to start first?
I can start. I will start with the challenge. I think that the main challenge that you have with recycling is the fact that recycled fibers still need to find their big market. So there is a kind of mismatch between recycling processes and dismantling processes that are coming up, and the fact that it's still difficult to have then in the end your recycled material and get it back in the front in the beginning of the manufacturing of a new garment. So that is a challenge that you as one company cannot solve. It's something that the whole industry needs to start to adapt and go to step by step. And the opportunity, I think, is mainly, some specific products, knowing that some specific fibers for recycler have a higher value than others. Think of wool or cotton or polyester that are much more popular than acrylic. So then the opportunity lies in garments that are manufactured with the high potential fibers. So it's looking for your opportunities by just doing the financial business model calculation.
Lots of math and Excel. Gloria?
Okay, I will feel the opportunity actually is from the market. through the awareness of the sustainability of the consumer, actually the market is increased very significantly from our communication with brands and our manufacturers. And also through the technology, we also could transfer the recycle, even the residues, to the valuable products as well. So I think that is a high potential, also is the direction for our technology development as well. And the challenge, I think, is majorly is from the scale up. Yeah, because the scale up sometimes is not because the technology itself. It's talking about the right time in the market and also the infrastructure ready in the society. So I think that is the challenge for the sustainability at this moment.
Yeah. So waiting for the right time and sort of like scalability as a key challenge.
Yeah.
For you, Brooke?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think a huge opportunity that we're really excited about is working with designers, because we work in algorithms. And the designers really have to get outside of their mind, and you no longer are looking at a silhouette, you're looking at body shapes and how things wrap around body shapes. And it's a completely different way to put garments onto people. And it creates these amazing creative constraints that brands and designers are excited about, and it's kind of creating a new way to think about how this system works. So for us, that's a big opportunity. Another is being able to capture the fibers in long form, so they don't yet have to be shredded. You have enough on your hands, so we're just going to kind of keep going in a loop, because you guys have enough recycled material to deal with for quite some time. But when you're able to recover long pieces of fiber and you don't need to shred it down and downgrade it, that's a huge opportunity for us. That is also one of our biggest challenges. Is the hardware machine, and we are gathering huge forces to try to get that going. And another big challenge is kind of getting these partners or brands to take that initial risk, to like give it a try, to see what can come out. So I think that's
it. Okay, the challenges for us will be, like Gloria mentioned, it's a scale up, and it has so many dimensions. The scale up of a business, a new type of business as well, new technology, because you have to build the ecosystem around it with supplies of waste. You have to build trust with your customers and so forth. It takes a lot of effort, but also. You have to convince the financial community that this is the best idea ever, so they invest money in it, so you can actually build new production units and production lines, because otherwise it will not become 1 billion pieces of garment for recycling. So bridging that gap between this enthusiasm that you meet on a sustainability conference together with the harsh reality of the financial institutions, that's a challenge.
Yeah, I like how he looked at all of you when he mentioned financial challenges.
Yeah.
For the investors in the room, pay attention. So we're out of time. I'll say two things to wrap up. One is that if you have old garments that you do not want, you know who to pass it to. The second thing is that, when you look at, we talked a lot about fashion today, but when you look at, say, the healthcare industry is facing very much similar opportunities and challenges. You have technological challenges in terms of scaling up new medicine, personalized medicine, but there's a concept in healthcare that I think applies to any innovations in general, and that's in hospitals. When you think about operations in hospitals, the hospitals that does the best are not the hospitals with the lowest error or failure rates. It is the hospitals that have failure rates, but they know how to recover from failure. Whenever there's an error done in operation, how do you quickly adapt, how do you quickly adjust? And the concept there is failure and recovery. And when we think about innovations in our ecosystem, I think it is great to be excited, but it's also, we need to be cautiously sort of resilient, because you're bound to face challenges in sustainability, you're bound to face different challenges. How do you actually recover from that? And to end on that note, wish you guys the best of luck ahead, and good luck to everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chen and all the panelists.